I mean, I can try to print them real quick.
You say, we're gonna have it in the packet on the screen. If you've got a personal hotspot on your phone, you should be able to turn that on the internet to it, so you can use Describe and have to figure it out.
That's okay, I mean, I know that I won't be by the. Yeah.
That's a whole separate.
Review of the Heritage at Marvin monument signage. Hunter.
Okay, so Jones Holmes has submitted their monument sign package for the Heritage of Marvin subdivision. I put this on the agenda as kind of a hybrid here, courteous review slash comments, recommendations. I'm getting clarification from our attorney because basically with the Heritage of Marvin being conditional zoning and having a development agreement, they're basically locked into those ordinances and regulations at that time, which means this would go through the same process, but you guys would act as DRB, make a, approve or deny, and then it would go onto council's agenda. If it goes through the process in the new ordinance, the master signage plan in Article 17 basically is the same process outside of there's a public hearing involved. So we're going to still probably make a motion, and then I'm going to get clarification from the attorney tomorrow on how to move forward. But I'll go through the signage package. So this is for the Heritage at Marvin. Their monument signage be located here right off their main entrance. It's what it looks like. Basically, the dimensions for the signage, the sign area, which is basically the actual lettering of the sign, is 21.25 square feet, which complies with both sets of ordinances. The total height of the sign, including the base, is 11 feet, and the base is 2 feet 4 inches, 4.5 inches, which complies with the old ordinance of a minimum of 2 feet of a base. The height of the sign is also 9.5 or 9 feet, 9 feet and 1/2 inch, which also complies with the old ordinance. With the new ordinance, once again, signage plans, it basically allows for them to provide documents like this. It can exceed the minimum and maximums of monument signage. It just has to be approved as part of a signage plan package. So either way, they are covered there. But once again, this does comply with the old ordinance as well. They will have some split rail fencing kind of go along with it, as well as some landscaping planted behind it, tying with the trail here that will be installed. I know one thing that one of the council members asked, because I know we just reviewed Broadmoor a few months back, and how the sidewalk path comes behind the signage and talking about pedestrian safety and such. There is no crossing right here. As you can see, it ties in with the sidewalk and they would come up. Sorry, I know you guys don't have this in your monitor. My bad. But this would come up here. They wouldn't cross here. They would come up to where it's a better line of sight, where any cars turning in, as well as any pedestrians walking on that trail, would cross in front of the sign instead of behind it. So that was a nice safety upgrade, and I'm pretty sure they're striping that on the construction documents. It's just not a part of their signage plan here. Other than that, is there really any questions, comments? I know.
Question about the uplighting.
Mm-hmm.
Are there 2 uplights, 1 uplight?
Do not believe you
I see
see.
them, I mean, like I'm looking at the materials page. But
I believe it's just going to be one for each sign, like on each side. And then they'll have the 2 decorative lighting on each side of the sign, like the lantern style.
sorry, there's an uplight. So
Yeah,
it's
that's what.
Not the lanterns, it's an actual,
Yeah,
like,
that's what I'm saying. There's one,
spotlight.
as far as I can tell, there's one on each like sign.
where do you see that?
Here's a picture of the light.
Yes,
Like-
that little one at the bottom.
Yeah.
Where is that? It doesn't say anything about. I'm just wondering where it is on the plan. Like what direction it's gonna be shining. How many are there?
Believe there's only one, and it's going to be shining to each sign or to the sign. What it's looking like. So it's going to be up facing towards the sign, not, I mean, shining away.
Right. Is it on the plan somewhere?
If you go,
I mean, if they have it listed, I'm just surprised it's not documented somewhere on the plan.
I mean, I can check with them on that, but
Yeah, I mean, all of our other submissions are, always have those, that documented and along with the lumens and all of that, so. Other than that, I mean, it's a lovely sign. I don't, I'm not sure I could personally read it if I were driving by, but
Yeah,
That's
I-
not-
I was gonna say with the color of,
it's too, there's not enough contrast, but, I don't think we're the designer board, the design review board today, so.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure I can make that comment, but personally, I wouldn't be able to see it.
trying to see.
Hunter, I would assume that it looks very close in size and design as what's on Joe Carr Road.
It is, I don't necessarily have those dimensions in front of me. But it's basically in conformance with all kind of similar other subdivision signage. And it's a different material than the one on, for the estates of Marvin Branch, but the actual size is roughly the same. Because if I recall, I know the sign area on the estates, I think was like 26 square feet, maybe 24. So it's roughly about the same in lettering and view.
There's also a slight glare on the screen, might be making it worse.
it's also a south facing facade, so the glare from the sun would be a lot worse, especially since it looks like an embossed text. They might just want to make it a little bit darker and readability during the day.
Can make all those requests of them.
My only concern about it is just that it's not obvious. And so if someone's going by and they realize they've missed it and they hit their brakes and then they cause an accident because, or they're turning around in someone's yard or, let's just make it easy for drivers instead of,
I will make all those requests to them before the permit is approved.
other than that, I want to know where the uplights, the spotlights are. It needs to be noted, it needs to be put on their plan.
Coming from South Carolina, curve.
Yeah, what?
The
is-
light, like I said, the lighting I can get confirmation on. I still have to have our engineer review this for site triangle and just safety aspect. So I will request the kind of lighting plan on that, but from my understanding, looking at this, it's only going to be one uplight that's going to be shining on the sign. Like, that's it. And it's most likely going to be in that planer bed.
Anyone have any questions or comments? Other than? No? Are we making a motion to approve?
I
or do
would go
we- are
ahead
we
and
just
make
waiting at this
a
point?
motion to, I mean, we can wait. I mean, they're still under development, but I'll get these comments addressed and then can bring it back once I get formal clarification from the attorney. But I think what we will be doing at the next meeting is you guys will then quote unquote act as the DRB board. Same as we've always done. I mean, basically you guys have already had that discussion, make the approval, and then it will go on to council's consent. That was my computer, I think. We're good. My computer just went to sleep.
So we'll see you next month.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, item number 2, discussion and recommendation of zoning map amendment 2024-1.
All right.
Is that because it's the first one? 2024-1 is the first one to consider.
Yeah, it's the
Is that
first
the re-
rezoning.
Okay. I'm just curious about the numbering.
It's easier to track it like that than try to just put it with all other permit numbers.
Yeah,
You just
makes
track the
sense.
things separate, just like we do for special use permits and everything. With that being said, with the adoption of the MDO, the village has received a zoning map amendment, which is a rezoning application for the property located at 1802 Summit View Place in Marvin. It's located in the Weddington Chase subdivision. The applicant's Mr. Bill Laughlin. He is here tonight. He has submitted this request to rezone his property from SFR 1 or 3 to SFR 1. Per the new MDO, yes, this will follow the procedures outlined in 5.3 of the new development ordinance. So getting into the request, the property is located in Weddington Chase. All properties in Weddington Chase were zoned SFR 3 at the time of the adoption of the NDO. That was, if you guys recall, during those conversations, they were selected as SFR 3 because Weddington Chase was platted with a minimum lot size of 15,000 square feet. Minimum front setback is 40, rear 40, and side setbacks is 5. The SFR 1, SFR 2, SFR 3, even though like a lot of the lots in Weddington Chase exceed the minimum lot size for SFR 3, it came down to the side setbacks. There's a lot of structures in Weddington Chase, existing houses that sit anywhere from 5 to 10 feet off the side. It's hard to go out there and measure every single one, but I know for a fact there's a couple permits that I pulled that they're right over 5 feet off the side. So to avoid any creation of nonconformities, the whole neighborhood was selected as SFR 3. So this property is surrounded by all residential property. And then on the west, it abuts the Weddington Chase Amenity Center. So getting into the lot characteristics and the difference of the request. So the minimum lot size for SFR 3 is 11,600 square feet, which is a little over a quarter of an acre. The SFR 1 is minimum lot size is 34,900, which is about 4/5 of an acre. The subject property's lot size is 35,484 square feet, so it would exceed that minimum lot size per SFR 1. Lot width for SFR 3 is 60 feet. Minimum lot width for SFR 1 is 130 feet. The subject property's minimum lot width at the front setback for SFR 1 is 81 feet and 6 inches. So that would create a non-conforming lot. It would be a legal nonconformity if council does approve this rezoning. But on the platted, it just says the minimum lot width varies. That's why they're in the cul-de-sac lots in Weddington Chase, they're smaller. And this is a cul-de-sac lot. Other than that, the existing structure on the subject property does comply with the front, rear, and side yard setbacks for the existing structure. Basically, in this request, the applicant would be giving up his approved side setback. The approved side, like I said, the side setback on the final plat for Weddington Chase is 5 feet. His existing structure sits about 21 and a half from the right side property line and 29 and a half from the left side property line. So it exceeds both the 16-foot side setback and the 5-foot side setback. So, he's not necessarily losing anything there. Any questions on the general overview of the request and kind of the difference in the lot characteristics? Okay.
I'm just curious as to why, what's the benefit?
Bill, if you would like to come up and answer that question.
The question is what?
Just curious
can't
as
hear you
to
with the mic.
why you're interested in rezoning back to
What it
SR.
was a month ago.
Mhm.
So I think it's I know it's the most appropriate designation for my property and for the whole of, we're only talking about my property, but the whole phase 1, the whole front half of our subdivision, 130 plus lots, meet SFR 2 without any question. And a number of lots meet SFR 1. And I think it sets precedent. I think it can diminish our property values over time. And my property seems to comply. When I made the application, or when I was corresponding with Hunter, I didn't know how to interpret the pie shape and the widths and things like that. So in my correspondence with him, I said, I'm interested in SFR 1. And if that doesn't, if the pie shape is a problem with the side, with the, I guess
Side-
the overall width,
side
the
setback. The
81
width,
versus the 130, then I'd fall back to SFR two. So,
Which the minimum lot width for SFR2 is 72 feet at the front building setback, which would be I don't have it in front of me, so, but either way, it in theory would comply. We'd have to do those calculations. So yeah, so he's made the request.
Do you see the benefit? If it's accepted and approved, what's the benefit to you?
I thought I just answered that one.
Yeah.
Excuse me?
Can you rehash it? Tell me one more.
Repeat it. Okay, so, my lot was, it's 8/10 of an acre. In reality, the tax records are not correct. All the parameters fit within SFR one except for what I just described, which was it's 103 feet instead of 133 feet on the lot width at the setback is my understanding. I think it's I believe it's the most appropriate zoning for my property and for the whole phase one of Weddington Chase, which is not the subject here, but, and again, falling back to SFR two, if it will bring it into compliance, I would fall back to that if that's possible.
If it was rezoned, do you expect anybody else in the neighborhood to want to follow suit? Have you discussed it with anybody else?
I had a handful of people reach out to me and, asked me and one said, should I do it? And I was, it's like, it's up to you.
Do you think that it will have any effect on you if you're the only one in there with the SFR one, with the rest of them SFR three, when you get ready to sell your property? Do you think it will have any bearing on
I think
you
it'll-
selling it?
I think it would help it. It's my opinion.
Hunter, could just, if you don't mind staying right there for a second, could you recap instead of going through all of the actual length and setbacks? If he goes from SFR 3 back to 1, what does he lose or gain?
He doesn't gain anything. Like I said, the only thing he would lose, just as many of the other properties in Weddington Chase would lose, would be basically the vested of a side setback of 5 feet. Meaning that if you purchase the property in Weddington Chase, that maybe your structure was maybe 10 to 15 feet off, but you had a plans to do an addition.
Our
And-
covenants do not allow additions beyond the sides.
I don't enforce covenants, I'm just saying that if somebody came to me for a permit for an addition and it complied with the setbacks, it's granted. I have the CCNRs of your neighborhood is something that as the HOA enforces. But with that being said, that's why, once again, all those properties were selected as SFR three, because it's not taking away those rights that they've, been under the understanding of. I mean, this also applies to accessory structures, pools, pool equipment, everything. And so that's why the whole neighborhood was selected SFR three. I have, and I can pull it up, Bill, if you need me to, but there's 287, I think, properties in Weddington Chase. The average lot size is about half an acre. The smallest lot size is about a third of an acre. And like I said, where those structures are at on that property vary. He does have a cul-de-sac lot, so his house does sit back. Property widens as it gets back, so it's not necessarily creating any nonconformities for him in this request. But that's, once again, when looking at this from when we did the MDO, that's why the whole neighborhood was selected as SFR three.
So, and if I could add, Hunter references one lot that's 1.5 miles from my house, that our neighborhood stretches from tip to tip as a crow flies a mile. Driving to this lot that is 3.337 acres or something like that, it's still complies with SFR two. It's 1.5 miles away from my house, and so to hold the whole neighborhood accountable for one lot that's in a second phase that came years after the first phase under different setback requirements and things, I just don't think that's appropriate. You've got, if you look at your new map, there are, for example, Wyndham Hall, I think is the name of it, has 80 lots, and that got carved out. And our neighborhood should have been split in half, in hindsight.
I think it's, it's consistency. It's a matter of consistency.
But
But
the is the neighborhood boundary, the subdivision boundary, the measure of consistency, or is it the immediate, 1,300 feet or, whatever that is?
It's it's the neighborhood. I mean, when we're going through this, there's no possible way to spend the time and, money that it would have paid to take a consultant to go out, look at every single property and give them that benefit. And there's no great way to an extent, in my opinion, to then break up a neighborhood. Wyndham Hall that you're referencing, there's two different developments on that. And so that's why, once again, we pulled all the plats for every single neighborhood. We looked at existing conditions in every single neighborhood, and that's how each zone or each resident SFR 1, 2, or 3 was selected for those specific neighborhoods.
so are you hoping to have stricter setback for
wanna be
yourself
zoned.
and your neighbors?
I want to be zoned appropriately and I want to protect the value of my property.
I guess I just don't,
And here's a fundamental question. Does it matter whether it benefits me or not?
well, I think part of it is just understanding where you're coming from, just trying to make sure that we understand why it's an issue. Because I don't see the why it's detrimental. I don't get that part. And for consistency, I understand why it was zoned the way that it was zoned. I'm just trying to understand if you're trying to ensure that the setbacks are stricter, so that neighbors aren't encroaching on each other, or if it's just a matter of you are one thing and then you want to go back to it. Like, I'm just having trouble understanding why, I guess. I don't see the financial, I don't see
Does
how
it
your
have to be?
property would lose
Does it-
value.
Well, that's my opinion.
If we did it, wouldn't it appear to be a spot zoning?
Spot zoning is not illegal in North Carolina. And at the end of the day, it's it's a residential district to a residential district. So, it would look weird on the map but at the end of the day, like there's nothing illegal about it. The only thing would be, in theory, from SFR 321, which we'll talk about the SFR 2 thing later. It would be creating a non-conforming lot because the structure does not meet, or the lot does not meet the minimum lot width at 50 feet. Like I said, I'd have to confirm and look at that from SFR 2. But at the end of the day, like, the uses are the same. The only thing that's basically would be changing in this would be zoning regulations, or the minimum lot size, setbacks, and so on. There's no, like I said, there's no benefit or burden either way, I guess, from a use standpoint.
But his neighbors would be held to a different standard.
His neighbors would, once again, if his neighbor wanted to do an addition or whatever, and they're zoned SFR 3, it still can be 5 feet off the property line. So it's not necessarily benefiting anything else.
It would be about the same as we have 5, or I don't know how many lots we have that are not in Marvin in Weddington Chase. It'd be they're zoned by the county. You see, I don't know.
They're,
County zoned
I
out.
believe, zoned
But
R.
they have different zoning as well, so.
So in the old ordinance, that RUC district was a vested district that basically said whatever was on the setback or whatever was on the plat, that continues. We got rid of that because it's an administrative nightmare. Because you're then looking at every single plat to Bill's point, sometimes different phases were platted at different things. So consistency was our main goal. And that's why pretty much every property that was zoned RUC was zoned SFR 3, because all three, or it's either 4 or 5 neighborhoods, all were annexed into the Village of Marvin. All were approved through the county at different times, all quote unquote zoned R40, but all very different standards. For example, is it Providence Glen, or what's across the street? Willow Creek on Bonds Grove Church Road. It's Willow Creek platted, but it's actually like Providence.
It's Willow Creek and Providence Ridge.
Yeah, Providence Ridge, their front setbacks are 20 feet, I believe. So, and those are smaller lots, like that one is more consistent with SFR 3, 100%. But like, once again, if you look on the plat, they all say all R40 cluster or something from when it just depends on when they were approved through the county and what the zoning regulations were at that time. But zoning changes. And when obviously we changed ours, the goal was to not create any nonconformities and not take any rights away from what those subdivisions, those property owners have been already operating under the same assumption for the time, time prior before the MDO.
And you say that there's a couple dimensions that would be non-conforming if it were rezoned to SFR 1.
His property, the only one for sure off of SFR 1 would be the minimum lot width. The minimum
Right,
lot
so-
width is measured at that 50 front setback. And based off what the applicant provided, it would be basically a 81.5 feet or so wide at 50 feet. So it does not comply with the minimum of 130
So,
feet.
God forbid, if the house burned, and you had to rebuild, you wouldn't be able to rebuild.
He would, because it's not a non-conforming structure. It's just a non-conforming lot, which I'm not an expert in this, but that still could actually lead to other issues with mortgage, insurance, other stuff, because the lot's non-conforming, but a lot being non-conforming is not as bad as a structure. To your point, if a structure was non-conforming and something happens like that, they have to then build back to a conforming, what is conforming at that time.
It was fine a month ago. Just trying
And
to
the
It's
only reason
still-
I
just trying to
bring
get back to that.
SFR 3 is still fine today.
I think it's a downgrade.
The only
Well-
reason I bring it up is
That's why they call it down zone.
It's not down zoning, Bill. I'm sorry.
Does
what-
anyone else have any questions for the applicant? All
Anything else to submit?
Excuse me?
Anything else to submit?
right, thank you.
With that being said, after, like I said, reviewing this, like I said, the subject property and existing dwelling on the lot does exceed the minimum zoning requirements for SFR 3 and all the SFR 1 minimum lot dimensions other than that minimum lot width at the front setback. Already stated that Weddington Chase was zoned SFR 3 just because it was the closest district that aligned with the minimum setbacks and lot sizes on their recorded plats for all phases. With that being said, staff does not recommend approval of this. Once again, planning board, you guys make your own recommendation. And at the end of the day, this is a village council legislative decision. But staff does not recommend this approval of this rezoning request due to SFR 1 not being consistent with the surrounding zoning with the neighborhood. And so, and it would also create that non-conforming lot at SFR 1.
Anyone have any further questions for Hunter? Would anyone like to take a stab at the vote? Yep,
It's there.
it's in the motion.
I'll do it. I move to not recommend approval of the proposed zoning map amendment 2024-1.
Is there a second for the motion? All right, all in favor? No, I mean, this isn't legally binding. The council.
Why is it not? I said no.
I know, that's what I'm saying, yeah. Go ahead.
So what was yours? You were a nay?
Really, just, just an administrative note, it is recommended that all motions be made in the affirmative. And then if you disagree with that motion, you vote no. That's for the sake of clarity, because then a yes vote is a yes, a no vote is a no.
So would I vote against my own motion?
Correct. That's the more appropriate way to do that.
Feels like it gets me in trouble.
Do we need to do over then, or did we?
That is up to the board. That would be my recommendation for the sake of clarity.
Yes,
Okay,
make a
for the
motion.
sake of clarity. So
So would you withdraw that motion?
Yeah, I'll withdraw it. Thanks.
Okay.
is there, so how do you make that motion in an affirmative?
To recommend.
Oh, you recommend approval and then, okay,
And then you vote, if you want to recommend it for approval, you vote yes. If you.
got it.
No.
See, we're still learning too, so it's always a learning process. All right, so let's try that again.
Go
Take
ahead.
two. Go ahead, Michael.
I move to recommend approval of the proposed zoning map amendment 2024-1.
Do you still second? Okay, So if you are in favor of approval, say yay. If you are not in favor of approval, say nay.
There's your eight votes.
Okay, anyone else? So yay or nay?
Nay.
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 All right, so
You?
nay.
Okay.
So your motion fails.
So our, yes, so the motion does not pass.
Fails 5-1.
So this still will be, like I said, on council's agenda for their July, you know, off the top of your head, what day that
Say
is?
that again.
What's the July council meeting?
July 9th.
July 9th council meeting. The other thing I did not get a chance to mention in the memo is that per the requirements in the MDO for rezoning process, just as they're kind of similar to the old ordinance, is that the applicant is required to hold a neighborhood meeting. That neighborhood meeting doesn't have to necessarily be before planning board, but has to be prior to council. The applicant has scheduled his neighborhood meeting for next Tuesday at 5:30, I believe, at his property. So just wanted to at least make you guys aware of that, but that has to be completed prior to the public hearing. Yeah, something like that.
All right, Hunter, planners update.
The only few things I've got to update you guys on is one, we do have two public involved or neighborhood meetings next week. One being Mr. Laughlin's that I just mentioned. The second being that ZEPSA Capital in joint with the Marvin Historic Trust, the owners of the Crane Store, have submitted a rezoning application for that property. So they will hold their neighborhood meeting on Thursday next week from 6 to 8 here at Village Hall. Would fully recommend attending or, you know, coming to learn. They will be presenting their site plan and going through that. But that's then anticipated probably to be on your guys' agenda the next couple months, July and August or so.
So is that submission just for the Crane Store piece of, I know they were talking about shared parking.
So it is for the whole, I think that property, it's either 2.25 or 2.5. I can't remember off the top of my head for the whole, the Crane Store property. So it is for the whole property. Basically what this is they're actually amending their original conditional zoning. It's the same process, the same exact process. And then just including the Crane Store property into theirs. So they'll be updating the site plan and updating. Okay, so it's just right at 2 acres. But it still follows that same process for a simple rezoning. The reason why they're amending is so then it would be all under the same umbrella. Be one development agreement, one site plan, consistent with regulations. If they did a new rezoning just for that tract, you then have a separate site plan, separate development agreement. Because the MDO is adopted, and you have two different sets of regulations that apply. So from an administrative standpoint, and they
Cleaner.
agreed with just to amend. So that means that if it gets approved, then they will basically in their development agreement be updated that to be applicable with all zoning ordinances or applicable law in effective date of whatever that date when council, you know, votes on it, if they do vote to approve it. So basically it would get rid of the old form-based code and all that stuff that the ZEPSA property is currently under governance.
Can I ask a technical question?
Mhm.
If for some reason, and this is, I'm not saying this is going to happen, I just want to know what would happen. If this new submission were turned down, does ZEPSA then default back
Did-
to their original approvals?
Yes,
Okay,
because it's, once again, it's an amendment to their current, it does not mean they get taken away what they already have.
okay, thank you.
But other than that, that's the, I think the only updates I got.
I've got a couple
Oh.
actually. Two quick things. If you all are planning to attend that neighborhood meeting, if you could give me a quick show of hands if you think you might attend, so that way I know if I need to put out a quorum notice.
Next Thursday.
Next Thursday. So you two? Anyone else? Okay. If there's only two, I won't put out a notice. If you do, if anyone changes their mind, just please let me know. The last thing, Board of Adjustment. So with the adoption of the MDO, it is going to be our eventual goal for this board to be a separate, it's still a separate board from the Board of Adjustment, but to have the same membership. Now, if the MDO is adopted, we're going to start filling those vacancies. There are still 2 serving members on the Board of Adjustment who are able to serve out their terms until March of next year. I'm going to ask them if they want to continue serving until their end date. If they do, they'll continue to serve and we'll appoint 5 of you all. If not, they'll step down and we will appoint the entire board to different terms.
Do they need their own chair? Or will they
Yes.
just be merging?
It
Okay,
is, it's a separate board with a separate elected chair and vice chair.
great.
I would recommend when we get there to probably keep it consistent. And we're gonna do like a mock special use permit, mock variance in the coming, months. You know, with now the new MDO, all special use permits are, I mean, it's kind of the bigger scary stuff and most of those also first step is a rezoning. So if something were to get proposed, we'll kind of be ahead of it. And then we'll hold a mock hearing and all that stuff and go through that. And then it's my intent to try doing something just to keep you guys fresh, like once a year. Just because Board of Adjustments, I mean, they also handle like appeals and of administrative decisions, appeals of, I mean, even legislative decisions. Actually, no, I don't think you can appeal legislative, but you can appeal like my administrative decision.
The opinion of the board can be appealed to a superior court.
Yeah. So, so we'll kind of go through that. I promise it's not scary. You just act a little bit more formal. And,
We're
you
just
know,
talking quasi judicial though, like that.
Yes.
Yeah. A
So-
lot of us have been through that training.
Yep.
At
We
least
would,
once.
if we were to have a Board of Adjustment meeting, it would be the same night as planning board. We would probably chair one of them, call one of them to order, finish, and then move into the other. Or if get so far into the planning board meeting, recess, call to order Board of Adjustment, and then go
Right.
back. And then
Yep.
it'll be the night is stacked up.
Okay.
other than
Are there
that,
any-
that's-
Questions or about anything?
Are there any action items?
No.
That was it. Okay. Bob, would you like to start board member comments? Marcus.
No comment. All good? All good, thank you, guys.
Tomorrow.
Does anyone have an idea what this is?
You don't know?
What's in it? Is this,
This is a tree.
it's the
oh,
original
it's a
zoning
tree.
ordinance.
Okay, yeah, yeah. Would that be the land use plan
That's
from,
the original Marvin zoning ordinance.
wow, it's so small.
The original one,
Back in 1872?
1998.
Let's say, I think it was in effect from like 98 to 2004.
Reviewed by sorry, it says reviewed by the North Carolina League of Municipalities, January of 96, contains amendments through June 9th of 98. And I'd be glad to later on explain why I've got,
Put it in the-
why I bought this, why I have it.
Get it, Mr. Stowe have a copy?
Hmm?
Marvin, story.
Oh. I don't know, I had no idea. But we've come a long way.
Yes, we
since
have.
that.
Yes, we have. So game on, kids. It's been approved and here it comes.
It's working.
All right, well, thank you, gentlemen and lady. Just 2 of us holding the fort down. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.